Hello and welcome to episode 947 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I am one of the co-founders here at ETR, and we are coming off of a Kyle Pitts kicked me directly in the penis kind of week. Yes, that's right. Kyle Pitts went for 48.6 DraftKings points on Thursday night of week 15. The first week of the best ball playoffs. 11 catches, 166 yards, 3 touchdowns. One of the greatest tight end games in the history of football. As I was watching this on Thursday night, I legit felt paralyzed. Like I couldn't move. I felt like I got punched right in the stomach. Just that sick feeling. Because I knew that even though I had a really good season in best ball, especially structurally and fades, I think, despite that, I knew I was in big trouble because I only drafted 2.5% Kyle Pitts this summer across 159 drafts. I had 0 Kyle Pitts on teams that made the playoffs. And I want to emphasize that I wouldn't be talking about this. I wouldn't be talking about Kyle Pitts if he had had a normal ceiling game, 20 points, 25 points. That would be a massive score for Kyle Pitts, even on DraftKings. His high score on the season previously on DK was 18 points. And so I would have been tilted by 20 or 25 from Pitts, but whatever. You know, that's all in the game. It is what it is. But 48, just unfathomable and really, really hard. Not impossible, but really hard to overcome. And so this is the value over replacement stuff that the elite tight end people love to talk about. And I feel like people are going to say, see, I told you, you need an elite tight end score to win in the best ball playoffs, idiot. And there's definitely something to that. I drafted plenty of Trey McBride. I didn't get much through. And that really hurt me here as he went off again for a massive game, 12 catches, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But my point is, when you do get an outlier score from tight end, it is a bigger edge than at any other position because the position is so weak and has such little depth. So yeah, I definitely had teams where I got a 10 from my tight end or a 12 or whatever. And if you had McBride or Pitts, I was just so far behind. However, as I talked about on episode 930, I think people are overconfident in their ability to identify who and when these elite tight end scores happen. Yes, of course, McBride and Bowers and Kittle are most likely to do it, but they can also have terrible games as well, as we've seen with Kittle throughout his career. He has these random games all the time, 0 points, 3 points. Bowers lately. You never know how it's going to run out. And in the best ball playoffs, 3 1-week samples, how do we know it's not Pitts? Or it was Njoku a couple years ago? Or was another late round tight end in Laporta a couple years ago? Or maybe that was last year. I can't even remember. So I don't want to get too narrow here in terms of strategy. I think there are a lot of different tight end strategies that can work. Definitely elite can work. Definitely 4 late round tight ends that we've seen some people try with success. Or something like a Pitts or a Laporta. You never know, man. Never know. Just go off for 48 fucking points. But anyways, Pitts, 48.6 points. I have none. I got 35 teams through to the best ball playoffs heading into tonight's game, and I'm in big, big trouble. So does that mean that I fucked up? I've been thinking about that a lot. And just zooming out, Pitts was drafted as the 15th tight end off the board this summer. He finished the fantasy regular season as the tight end 16 in points per game. Pitts had just 5 games all season with double-digit fantasy points. 4 of those came with Drake London out and Kirk Cousins starting. So from that perspective, Pitts was not a great pick this summer. He was an average pick. I'd say it was a fine pick. His advance rate in Best Ball Mania was 17.4%, just ahead of the average advance rate, 16.7%. And that's what's so jarring about this, to get fucked so hard and deep by a dude who wasn't even that great of a pick. I wouldn't even call him a good pick. He was just an average pick. It's just tough. And look, the last thing I want to do is come on here and whine. There's nothing I hate more than the victim stuff, the looking for excuses nonsense. There were definitely paths to beating Kyle Pitt's teams. My teams did not perform well enough this week, period. But I do think it's worthwhile to remind ourselves about what I say all the time about best ball. It's really just one slate. Think about it like a DFS slate. You make 150 teams or whatever you do for a DFS slate. Let's say you don't have Seahawks defense. They go for 33 points. You automatically lose. Now, I do think it's worse here in the best ball stuff for two reasons. On a DFS slate, Seahawks defense might only be 10% owned or 5% or 2%. You can still have a decent day. Maybe you can't win a tournament, but you can still have a decent day depending on your contest selection. Whereas this Kyle Pitts thing, he was in like 80% of my pods. The second thing I'd say is that on DFS slate, we put a ton of work into each slate, hundreds of hours each week between everyone on the team easily. But best ball, I can't tell you how many times I didn't do whatever with my wife or my family because I had to do a draft, or I let the kids lie around watching TV because there was a really good 5-5-5 that was about to go off. I spent hundreds of hours drafting and thinking about players and strategy, all to get Kyle Pitts shoved directly down my esophagus. So it's similar in that one guy breaking a DFS slate when you think you played well and you got everything else right. Yeah, that's super frustrating. But I think this best ball run out is undoubtedly more frustrating than that. And yeah, if it happens in any other week, any week between week one and week 14, it matters, but that's all in the game. For it to happen though, in the first week of the playoffs, in the first game, yeah, I was tilting harder than I ever have in a DFS slate easily. I do want to reiterate again, there were plenty of people who didn't draft a lot of Kyle Pitts and advanced a good number of teams to week 16. So it certainly wasn't impossible. I don't think I am going to. So yeah, maybe it's just on me. You guys know me. I never bet games, sides, and totals. I consider it just straight flipping coins. But I was so fucking tilted on Thursday night that I actually bet games. I was just so out of control. I bet Patriots plus 1.5, Giants minus 2.5, Broncos plus 2.5, Chargers plus 6. I was just like, why not just flip fucking coins if Kyle Pitts can go for a 50 ball in best ball, And you're not going to believe this, but I flipped coins on 4 games and I went 2-2. Back to Kyle Pitts for a second. Just on him specifically. Yeah, he's just 25 years old. As Thorman noted on Twitter, Pitts is just 3 months older than Travis Kelce was when he caught his first pass. Obviously, Pitts is a talented dude. He went 4th overall in the draft for a reason. He had a 1,000-yard season as a rookie. Yeah, you can make a case I should have drafted him more over the summer. That's fine. You can make that case. But I do not think it was a bad fade. Again, he finished as a tight end 16 in points per game. I was taking Dallas Goedert, Jake Ferguson, Brenton Strange over him. I still think that was right. And later than Kyle Pitts was going, much later, I was taking Theo Johnson, Mike Gesicki, Chig Okonkwo, Pat Freiermuth, Harold Fannin. Some of those were bad, but some of those were hits too and way cheaper. So I don't think it was a bad fade. Last thing here is format. Anytime you introduce extremely high equity spots into small samples, like 1 week, week 15, this kind of variance and volatility is massively in play. And I know that. It's still tilting, of course, but I know that. Are the people that had Pitts and go on to win 6 or 7 figures in best ball this year, are they the best ball players in the world? Fuck no. Are the people who didn't have Pitts and brick out, are they the worst? Of course not. And so I'm sure some people will use this Pitts game to argue for a more quote unquote fair format. I personally think the full season style of best ball, no playoffs, is most fair. Whoever scores the most points from week 1 to week 17 is the winner, period. But people don't like that format. Underdog tried that format. I think it's called the Marathon. It's fractionally as popular as Best Ball Mania. I think they struggled to fill the Marathon, if I remember correctly. Drafters has that format. They really struggled to fill theirs. So although people say they want a quote unquote more fair format, when it comes to actually playing, they don't. People want the variance, it seems. They want the playoff format. And so when you sign up to play this stuff, as I did, well, you can't bitch when the variance goes against you. Even though that's what I've spent the last whatever, 10 minutes or so doing is bitching, but I shouldn't be. So, look, man, I'm pretty sad about it. I thought it was gonna be a really good year. I ran well on injuries, I would say. Um, I sweated it all year. I thought I was set up pretty well to just get a little lucky in the playoffs and make a huge score. So it's sad. I'll remember this for a long time. Death by Kyle Pitts, just really, really tough to swallow. Speaking of tough to swallow, I'm such a sick fuck. I don't recommend this, but I actually logged all my high stakes best ball teams that finished in third place so I could see if they would have won something. This is really disturbed behavior. I need to seek help, but yeah, I'm tracking those also. Despite all that, despite everything I just said and whined and bitched and complained, I will say I can't wait to start drafting again. It's really sick. Maybe I'm addicted, but the best ball sweats, man, they are fun and they're intense and makes me feel something, almost makes me feel happy to be alive. There's an old joke. What's the best thing in the world? Winning in sports gambling. What's the second best thing in the world? Losing in sports gambling. Almost makes you feel happy to be alive. Almost. All right. Need to get to listener questions, but before I do, for anyone with the ETR best ball product, playoff only best ball contests are live, as are our rankings. Please read Herzig's strategy article on that format before diving in. It's very important. We also did a free show on this topic on YouTube last week. Check that out. And then if you have the best ball product, you can upload our rankings from ETR. Look in the NFL menu. You can find those and upload them directly to Underdog or DraftKings. Also, NBA season officially for a lot of people kicks off on Christmas. It is in full swing, though. If you're interested in playing NBA DFS or betting NBA props, head to the NBA tab on establishtherun.com. All right, enough is enough. It is time for everyone's favorite portion of the program. Question 1 from Lord Helmet. He says, on a scale of 1 to 100, 1 being normal, 100 being Howard Hughes becoming a hermit, how weird is Tom Brady cloning his dog? That's a 1, Lord Helmet. Very normal. I would clone the fuck out of Jerry, who, by the way, Jerry is 12 now. She's already exceeded her average life expectancy. Tell me where the cloning machine is. I'm in. I mean, that's not even close to the weirdest shit that people do. We've got people spending thousands of dollars to see the quote unquote Long Island medium who allegedly talks to dead people. I think that's what she does. This woman's selling out theaters nationwide. We've got furries, people who think they're animals. They walk around on all fours with a fake tail taped to their ass all day. And you're going to tell me that wanting to clone the best thing in our life, the best thing on earth, dogs, you're going to tell me cloning dogs is over the line? I mean, I know it's slightly different, but if Jerry's parents were still alive, would it be weird to have them fuck and get another Jerry? I mean, I know that's a sister. I know that's not cloning, but the goal is the same. Same DNA, hopefully same dog. I just couldn't fathom having a better anything than Jerry. So, yeah, Tom Brady is probably into some weird shit. I don't really keep up with exactly what he's into, but I'm with him on this dog cloning thing, man. Sign me up. Question 2 from Dutch de Klerk. He says, I think we can all agree that Curb Your Enthusiasm is one of the greatest shows of all time, but there's much debate about what is the greatest episode. Please settle this debate. Yes, Dutch, I'd hope that in our very rational society, we can all agree that Curb is the best show in the history of television. I really don't watch much TV, but one of my favorite things to do is get ready for bed, be all ready, go out on the deck, 1 glass of wine, smoke a little, come back in, watch old Curbs. I laugh so hard, it wakes my wife up. It's the best. She loves it when I wake her up laughing so hard, let me tell you. But anyway, I think there are 3 very clear candidates for best episode ever. Number 1, Palestinian Chicken. Season 8, episode 3, Larry has a sexual encounter with his dry cleaner, who's a Palestinian woman. I can't really say some of the lines from that one because some people I'm sure would get really offended. But for the rest of us, you got to watch it, man. It's so fucking funny. Second candidate for best episode ever. I'll go with season 7, episode 6, The Bare Midriff. Larry's assistant is a little bit chunky and always wears these shirts that expose her belly button, her bare midriff, if you will, and comedy ensues. Also in that one, Larry can't control his piss and pees all over a Jesus painting. I mean, and third, lastly, I'll go with season 4, episode 8, Wandering Bear. Larry puts a numbing condom on backwards, messes up Cheryl's nether regions, and the landscaper, Wandering Bear, he prescribes some Native American medicine. Meanwhile, Larry and Jeff get obsessed with Girls Gone Wild videos, which if you're my age, I'm sure you remember the Girls Gone Wild videos. Man, it's unreal. There's certainly other ones. I mean, bald asshole episode is amazing. When Larry wears the MAGA hat is amazing. Honestly, if you listen to the solo pod, I'd be genuinely shocked if you don't like Curb and think it's the best show ever. Question 3 from Ryan. He says, the barrier to entry in pickleball is way lower than tennis. I agree. Which makes people think pickleball is easy/boring. But at the 4-5 plus level, it's fun and athletic. Hit me up when you're ready to change your mind. I'm probably the only 4-5 plus player in Denver that is a fellow grinder. I know I've been disparaging to pickleball on here before. I think people like me that really love tennis, it's hard to not hate on pickleball. But I will say this. Yes, doubles pickleball is an embarrassing humiliation that I would never admit publicly to participating in. But as Ryan is describing here, singles pickleball at a high level, 4-5 plus, I've played some of that and it is awesome. It's a great workout, which is, what I care about most. And it's super competitive, tons of strategy, rewards movement and power. It's definitely an awesome game. So yes, Ryan, DM me. I've had the same standing offer for the last, 7 years or so, 8 years. If I've never seen you play tennis and you want to play a singles match, I'll play you for 500. You must escrow. I don't want to get free rolled by some animal. But yeah, I'll now extend that. Thanks to Ryan's question here. I'll now extend that to the pickleball streets as well. If I've never seen you play pickle and you want to play for 500 in a singles match, you're on. Question 4 from Petro. He says, how do you feel about the daily draft games like the ones on Underdog? Why don't you play them? Yeah, so Petro is referring to the snake draft tournaments on Underdog. For example, in NFL each week, they have a bunch of tournaments, but instead of salary cap, it's snake drafts. The first thing I'd say is that I honestly suspect those are really good spots. The reason I don't play them is just really hard to scale. I have to sit down and take the time to actually do the drafts. I do think you can be plus EV in those without a ton of thought while drafting. Like if you understand the strategy around correlation, understand how important uniqueness is in the later parts of those drafts. If you have our NFL in-season product, you have access to our uploadable rankings to the snake drafts, weekly snake drafts on Underdog. If you have Solver Draft Assistant, it will help with all the strategy stuff and help you make picks quicker and easier. You can do multiple drafts at the same time and scale it better that way. So yeah, I think it's a really good spot. And if I was grinding as a side hustle right now, or if I was grinding full time right now, yes, I'd be playing those. But the honest answer is that ETR is so far and away my number one priority these days by a mile. Playing and grinding, although I love it, it's just not as big a priority for me at all these days. And so if ETR went away tomorrow, then yeah, I'd probably be trying to do 100 plus of those drafts a week. And by the way, they do have them for NBA also. We have rankings for that. NBA daily snake drafts at ETR also if you're an NBA in-season subscriber. But, Petro's question is just a reminder of what I try to keep harping on here when it comes to game selection. If you have a smaller bankroll, if your goal is reasonable, if your goal is not, hey, I'm going to win $1 million this week, if that fits you, finding spots more off the beaten path is just a no-brainer. I got a note from someone a couple weeks ago, said he heard me talk about this on the solo pod, decided he's just going to play random showdown slates during the 1 p.m. window. And then he's going to play the 4 p.m. only slate each week. And that narrowed his focus. And he's been doing well. There's less good info out there about those slates. And he said it's working for him. So, that's part of our job as players, if we're taking this seriously, to find the best spots. And I don't doubt that those snake draft things are some of the better spots right now. Century Bob says, this is the last question we're going to do today from Century Bob. He says, as a fellow virgin, I often find myself capitulating mid-main slate and looking for some post-nut clarity. Every time, though, you pop into my head during said enlightenment period from a recommendation in a solo pod. Not really a question. So my question is, are we sick? When I was a young boy, my parents were so proud. I got good grades. I played sports. Coaches loved me. Teachers loved me. I never went to jail. And one day, maybe in their wildest dreams, they thought their only child could achieve great things, like Century Bob beating his meat in a quest to gain post-nut clarity so he can optimally play the Sunday night showdown slate, and then having me pop into his head. It's really incredible. Honestly, though, all jokes aside, you guys would be shocked at how many truly sick questions I get. Like Century Bob's question here is relatively tame. And I know. I brought this on myself with all the sex jokes on the internet and normalizing deviant jokes. Sometimes I see like other people in the fantasy space like make sex jokes, and I'm like, man, I did that. That's my fault. But yeah, it's a real window into the mind of the meat watchers. I'm just joking when I do these sex jokes. I think many of you are serious. And that's really the real concern, Bob. It is. All right. That is going to do it for another episode of the Solo Pod. We'll be back with Silva for Team by Team. First run of projections for fantasy semifinal week will be live Wednesday night. For producer Luke, for Jerry, the most beautiful beast in the world, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.